right. Welcome, another episode, Digital Recruiter Podcast. Today, we have the Digital Recruiter Podcast cousin, the Modern Recruiter Podcast host, Robin Choy, agency owner, ATS company owner. He's done it all. LinkedIn. He's, I think, got double the followers that I do. So he's everywhere at once somehow. I've been really enjoying getting to know him the last few weeks. Robin, thanks for being here, man.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, a lot to cover, a lot to dig in. You've done a lot, but let's just kind of start where we always start. Like, how did you get into recruiting?
It's a long story. We started. So my background is I'm originally French. I'm from France. Started the first company was when I was still in kind of university in business school. It was a marketplace of people sharing services remotely, so you can there is some recruiting element to it as well, or like talent management and connecting the right people with the right missions. Didn't go anywhere really, but it was a fun project to work on for a few years. And then in final year of school, I met with Ismail and Paul, my two co-founders, and we really wanted to create a company originally. So that's how we got started, kind of this idea of working together, creating a company. And we didn't know anything really. We were 23 or 25, something like this. But Ismail had a very specific expertise in competitive programming. And he's been coding since he was 12. He did a lot of competitive programming. And like there's international Olympiads in informatics. I discovered this. And then he coached the French team for this, coached a few people. And so we're like, okay, let's use that expertise to kind of create a technology that has value in the business world. And the technology that would have value would be an assessment software for companies hiring software engineers. Yeah. And because he had that expertise, we pretty quickly had a product. And it was obvious for us to say, okay, instead of wasting your engineers' time assessing software engineers, just send them this test. It was based on the scenarios that would adapt to the person's progression. It was pretty cool. And that was the first step into recruiting through the assessment angle. And we wanted to sell this also to recruiting agencies, because like this way you can assess people. And pretty quickly we realized, like, first, recruiting agencies didn't care about assessing people. They're like, okay, it's the client's job, so they'll do it. I don't really care. And B, the companies had a lot of so they were interested in the test, and they all told us, like, the tests are great, but we have nobody to take those tests. Like we just don't have any applicants. And still, again, fresh out of school, like, okay, well, don't you just post a job online and wait for good software engineers to apply? That's how you do it, right? Go on LinkedIn and post a job there. And then we realized that it's not as simple as that. And then for a lot of roles, you can post a job online and pray, but nothing happens, and you have to go after candidates. Yep. And pretty quickly, we decided to kind of stop the assessment product and just focus on getting candidates to companies. And the first iteration was just me going on LinkedIn. Well, Paul would go on LinkedIn, find a list of people, and then I would take that list, reach out to those people using email sequences, personalized messages. We did a lot of things kind of wrong for the industry. Like, we would give the name of the clients, we'd say we're hiring for that company, and describe the role. But it felt natural to us, and it worked really well. We had huge reply rates. And that's how we got started. And for about a year, we were a very, like, 3-people shop recruiting agency. And Ismail was automating stuff, so automating the search on LinkedIn, and then automating the messages, and automating the personalization. And after about a year, we started selling that as a software to companies that were hiring. And the value proposition was, if you were looking for a software engineer, we'll give you a list of people, we'll give you a tool to reach out to those people, we'll give you the sequences, and you can engage with them directly. Did that for a few years. And we charged only a placement fee, and there's a lot to say about this, and the placement fee and the toughness of the placement fee, where every month you have to start from scratch again. And even more so that we were providing the leads, so we didn't really manage the relationship. Sometimes it was so frustrating to see companies get replies, but then just drop the ball and don't reply to those candidates, specifically like software engineers. So the product evolved. We expanded to the US through first a client that moved to the US in 2019. And then we went through YC in 2020, Y Combinator. So we kind of moved to the US. Lots of like bumps in the journey, coronavirus, and then the craze of 2021, 2022. Fast forward to today, we have two products that are descendants of the original legacy of the product. One is a software suite that does the CRM, the ATS, that helps get more candidates. We also sell more to recruiting agencies now, so you can also manage your clients. There is a lot of AI in the product that we built since 2016, because that's also a big expertise from Ismail. And it's basically a kind of central piece of central system of record for agencies or internal talent acquisition teams. So we call this HireSweet CRM. And the second part, kind of the reaching out to candidates, more service part, morphed into a talent marketplace, which we call HireSweet Marketplace, which would be a competitor to kind of Hire.com if they were in France. And that's solely focused on software engineers as well, and in France. So the CRM we saw globally, and the marketplace is only in France. That's kind of 8 years in 10 minutes already.
That was pretty good.
5 minutes.
About 5, even better.
Right, it's okay.
Really interesting, right? I feel like you almost got into like a lot of people got into recruiting the last few years without any kind of formal recruiting experience. I think it was less common before coronavirus and COVID and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so you're doing it kind of 2015, 16. You mentioned a couple things of like, we didn't do it the typical way, right? That most the kind of agencies kind of train you to do it. And it's something that I've actually kind of evolved my process significantly on, and mindset coming from the agency background. But kind of sharing the company name and kind of like, what did that do? Like, what did you learn from that? Like from just like the candidates and everything, like how did that affect like the business? Like when did you realize like, oh, we have something here that's not industry standard, right? Because you kind of probably learned the industry through candidates having bad experiences. Like, what was that like? Yeah.
Buckle up. There's tons of learnings there.
Okay.
one big learning more on the client side is when we started very kind of like young again and idealistic, the client will come to us and say, okay, we're looking for a software engineer with 3 to 5 years experience working in these companies and doing this. And then we're like, okay, yes, sir. Okay, sir, let me find that person. And we go there, we find the right person, and then they would hire someone with 10 years of experience, or they wouldn't hire at all, or they would hire an intern. And that happened so often. It was like mind-boggling to us. And then we started realizing that the role of a recruiter is very much the same as a doctor. You don't want to listen to what the person think they have, like what the disease they think they have, but really go back to the root principles and be like, okay, why are you hiring now, and how can we solve that deep problem instead of just delivering that hire that you tell me you need to close. So that's interesting, and that was definitely a learning. Like you're there to coach clients, and sometimes they'll tell you that they're looking for someone, but they're really looking for something else or someone else. And I believe that's where a lot of value is created in the recruiting industry, like trying to connect candidate expectations and clients' expectations that don't overlap, and kind of push them together and make them realize what the market really is. And it's the same for candidates. So that was a big learning for us. Second learning, there is this kind of trope that if you share your client's name, then the candidates will go directly to the client and try to bypass your fee. That didn't happen for us. Broadly, even on a placement fee, like we had maybe 5% bypass from the clients, less than 5% clients that would try to hire people that we showed them without telling us. But that was really low. So another learning is like people really don't try and scam you. There's just they know you are a counterpart and they're willing to pay that fee. Candidates reply much more if you reach out to them directly. And then when with the CRM, we measured a lot of stuff like sending on behalf. So there is this kind of idea that sending on behalf of the CTO, for instance, will get a better reply rate. It can, but it's not significant. What's significant is the message. Like if you have a very good message, you'll have higher reply rates. And of course, the underlying opportunity, if the job is crappy and then the pay is low and the company has a lot of bad reviews on Glassdoor, it's going to be harder to have a high reply rate.
Yeah.
But still, with a good message, you can really have a good impact on your reply rate. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's all gold. I love the daughter analogy. That's recruiting in a nutshell. Agency recruiting in a nutshell. I mean, that's it right there, right? Yeah, don't listen. Don't take the patient's word for it. The patient might be right at times, right? But how many times, especially now, they Google something or whatever, it's like, I have this. It's like, no, you have a cold, right? Or whatever else, right? It's such a great analogy. I'll just assume like you can listen to them and hear them, but kind of get to that root cause. And then it's all in the messaging, which again goes back to how you qualify a role and realize like, hey, this is a good role for the market. Like I know candidates are going to be excited about this and I have the ability to craft the messaging to go get that candidate. Right. And that's the value and the leverage you have compared to these companies didn't have the time to figure out messaging or the time to even do the reach out or to screen all these people. Right. So that's why they work with you. I mean, that's it. Right. I mean, that's it as we make it sound simple, but it's hard obviously to execute. But I think those are like the roadblocks you hit that you either pivot and adapt and succeed like you did, or you kind of just get stuck spinning your wheels and the fill ratios are lower and you're constantly wondering, like trying to get feedback, like what's happening. It's like you really went from that order taker to consultative mode fairly quick, it sounds like, which is impressive. And and it's a theme I've been seeing that some of the best clients I've had jumped right into recruiting without agency experience, and almost what they don't know actually helps them resonate with the market and candidates and clients because they're so refreshing because they don't act like they know everything, which is I think a common trap for agency recruiters as well.
Right.
So yeah, really cool stuff. So you summed up the story in 5 minutes. When did you start? I guess what was the approach to getting clients? Right, talk to us kind of like how you started acquiring clients for this, especially on the kind of the recruiting side. Kind of how did that business development kind of evolve over the first few years?
Right. So the first few years was mostly like direct network. Our first client is a company called Gorgeous. I know the CEO and went on the exchange program with him in Shanghai, and then that's another story. So I know the guy. He started the company. We helped him hire their first engineer, and then over the lifetime of the company, they're like 400 people. It's a huge success, and we hired dozens of people for them. So that's network, and then word of mouth, and then a lot of outbound. And we would do a lot of outbound, email outbound, one email, two follow-ups, and we were kind of I think if I looked back on my messages then, I think I would be very very proud of them. And sometimes I've done it, like looking at old messages from 8 years ago, and I think we were really focusing on like explaining very clearly what the value is, using no bullshit words, and displaying the value proposition, trying to find warm connection to these people. And we would do the same for candidates. So for candidates, we would send a long message saying, okay, we're hiring a software engineer for this company. They do this. And it's not like they're the leading in the field of food delivery. It's like, okay, they delivered that amount of meals last year and they're profitable and they're growing 30% month to month. Try to add as much information as possible. And then in the PS, we would add a ton of information on the tech stack, on the people they would be working with. So we had that same approach with clients as well. And that was pretty much it for about 4 years. And then we had word of mouth, community. We're pretty embedded in a lot of communities. And then in 2019, we hired a guy that's now a full-time LinkedIn influencer. He's got like hundreds of thousands of people on LinkedIn. His YouTube channel as well as his life now. But it was, again, 25 back then. He kind of introduced us to LinkedIn. We started doing a few LinkedIn posts here and there. back then it was so much easier than today.
Yeah.
So much less competition. That was crazy. I think you could send 100 invites per day
Oh, it's
versus
crazy.
10 today. It was
And
totally
there's
crazy.
no limit.
There was no limit. It was
Yeah.
it was a free for all. And so that was kind of a successful, but we didn't really, it was so easy that we didn't really, strangely, we didn't invest too much into it because like a post would make hundreds of thousands of views. So we wouldn't make a post every few months. Basically, that's stupid looking back on it. And then in 2020, the pandemic hit and it was a terrible hit for us and for a lot of people in the industry as well. We lost 80% of our revenue in 2 weeks. We were on a like kind of a rocket ship trajectory. We just graduated from Y Combinator, and suddenly we lose all of our revenue. Clients wouldn't hire anymore. So we did two things. The first one is we organized speed recruiting sessions over Zoom calls. So we get like the 8 companies that are currently hiring DevOps engineers, software engineers, and we will match them for 2 hours. So every company could see everybody because everybody was doing video. So it's kind of a funny thing to do. And we called it HireSweet. That's one thing we did. And the second thing we did, because we had more bandwidth and we were locked down at home, we started doing more content. And that's when I started doing the first episode of, back then it was called A Players. The podcast was the Modern Recruiter. Yeah. And that's when we started. And again, that's already 4 years ago. And then because I started doing this, I started posting more on LinkedIn, stuff like this. And up to a point, LinkedIn brought in 50% of our new leads, self-declared leads on the LinkedIn page. And, that became a huge go-to-market for us. We kept doing a lot of outbound, but that was now supplemented with more content on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Two big things I want to cover there. So the first, because I want to make sure I get it right. So you had 8 companies on a Zoom with you, and then kind of showing them your people in your network, candidates, all that, to kind of, there's almost like live kind of sourcing submittals. Am I getting that correct?
So the way it worked is we would get 8 companies, 8 people, and then we would create a schedule where at like 5, company A will meet candidate A. At 5:20, company A will meet candidate B, then C, then D, and they would each talk for 20 minutes.
It's like speed dating.
Speed dating. That was super fun to organize. It was very heavy operationally because we would match people, and then people 2 hours before the session would say, "Oh, finally, eventually I can make it." So, okay, now you get to reorganize everything. It was very funny, and that worked because there weren't so many companies hiring. Like in March, April 2020, there were companies that were hiring were companies that were benefiting from the pandemic. 10% of companies, so we just get them and promise them high quality candidates. And it was we really thought about scaling this, and then we just dropped that product. We did that for I think about a year, and we did maybe 20 25 placements through this, but it was cool. Like, I would recommend people explore this.
How did you even come up with that idea?
I don't know.
No? I don't know. It's creative, right? I mean, it's just I like when people get creative and think critically of different ways to deliver, especially agency recruiting, right? And kind of almost, Will McGee talks a lot about productizing your offer and your services. I mean, it's just a different way to kind of lean into the pulse of the market,
right?
So it's just interesting.
I think one of the constraints that we had is that allowed us to set up a tempo, and we were like, okay, can you join next Thursday starting 4 p.m.? So the companies will need to kind of prioritize it. Well, everybody was kind of waiting in this market. So people weren't really sure, and they didn't. Yeah. So this allowed us to set up a tempo, and then the same for candidates. And I think that started with it. And also, like before 2020, most of the interviews were in person. You had a phone screen call. Obviously, that's a phone screen, but then you meet in person. First interview is in person. Not anymore. There's a lot of interviews that happen over Zoom until the final stages, and sometimes a person can join the company without even meeting the company. But back then, it was kind of new, and so we're like, okay, we'll leverage that opportunity to do Zoom meetings and instead of meeting in person, and allows to go faster. Frankly, don't remember exactly how we got that idea. There was a lot of
That's
iterations as well. We probably did one first and then build on this.
well, it's just again the way to think about it, and how do you create and reveal that urgency, right? Because if someone's going to join that on the client side, you know they're ready to move and they're urgent, right? So it's just you and I talked about it when on the last episode we recorded. It's just getting you always want to get people to reveal where they're at. Now they might not need you right now. They might not be any urgency. That's okay as long as you know,
Right.
right? You have that answer, and maybe sometimes they're gatekeeping you, maybe they are lying, but you have to figure out a different path or different way in or different contact. But always getting people to kind of reveal where they're at. Eight companies are like, yeah, we would love to do that, right? And eight candidates are like, yes, I need that and I want that. And then you learn by people dropping out and okay, maybe it wasn't as urgent for them. That's okay. You got to find a replacement, but it's a no cost, right? Replacement's not like you charge anyone anything. So it's just like thinking about those things that way across the whole like business development flywheel, really the whole recruiting process. I think is so important. So I love that. And what you mentioned with LinkedIn, 50% of kind of the leads all that was coming in. Now, are those people, are they messaging you right away? Be like, hey, I love your post. I want to work with you. Did you have to do like a little bit of digging to kind of see who was interacting and kind of knock over the domino a little bit? Like what was that like? Actually getting the lead to a client. Yeah.
So those 50% or 30 to 50% are self-declared on the landing page. So on the landing page, when somebody fills in the form to get a demo, we
Mhm.
ask the question, how did you hear about us? And the answer is in free text. And depending on the month, up to, again, 50% of people will mention LinkedIn directly. So that's kind of self-declared lead
Yep.
generation top of funnel. Then we would also have outbound sequences reaching out to people that interacted with our posts or subscribed to the podcast, but more on a casual way because you don't want like kind of subscribe to the podcast immediately after just getting pitched.
Yeah.
So more build a relationship, and this will be more attributed to the outbound, but it's really supported by LinkedIn. And then we get a lot of people that just it's the difficulty of attribution. So there's one specific company, for instance, one of our largest deal ever. We got them because I hosted a roundtable with the person who ended up being our promoter there. So I hosted this roundtable at an event. The reason why I was invited was because of the LinkedIn content I had been putting and creating relationship with the company organizing that event. So how do you attribute this? You have to do the LinkedIn event and the LinkedIn content and kind of build some recognition and a brand name, and then you get invited to events for free, opportunities that you couldn't even pay for.
Yep.
Then you have to play the game, give away a lot, like come up to the event, organize and like host the thing for free. And again, you're not getting paid, but obviously I get to talk to clients. And the one person the way we ended up signing, so we got a lot of clients from that event, but the like one most important person was the person that hosted the roundtable with me, and still it took 6 months to move forward with the deal, and then about a year to kind of close the deal. So 6 months to initiate the conversation for the deal, and during those 6 months we stayed in touch, and obviously I nurtured this person through my LinkedIn post as well. So that's kind of and then you would get another example conversation with a woman in the US who's interested in buying HireSweet. So we went up to sending the proposal, and then no news, totally ghosting, or like follow up over email, phone calls, no news. And then about a year later, she comes back to me and says, "Oh, I loved your latest podcast episode, and I've been following your content on LinkedIn for a year. And actually, I was in France a month ago, so I was thinking maybe I should go say hello to Robin. And in the meantime, all the LinkedIn content, I've been nurturing her." And she's like, "Sorry, last time we actually got layoffs in the team, so that was not the right time. But no, this is the right time." And she bought the licenses in like a week. And so that's kind of the effect on nurturing. So for us, it was effect on the entire pipeline.
I love everything about what you just shared. It is, you're living proof of everything I try to everything I do coach and teach, and I just the points I drill down is like content isn't just, you're not just writing, it's not free form poetry that you're just kind of sharing, like there's real purpose. This
Mm-hmm.
is sales. Like content is sales. And if you do it right, and because so many recruiters, they take it so personally when someone drops off or anything else, it's like, you don't know what's going on. There could be a whole story. There could be layoffs and, Monday I'm going to sign up. And then Tuesday night I get an email that's like, we got to do this, or something happens personally and I got to pay this, or the car breaks down and you got to buy a new, like whatever could happen in a big or small business's world. And maybe they just run out of time to reply and it's almost easier not to, or, whatever. Maybe they don't think that you're going to believe them. So like, it just happens. And so LinkedIn, and I love what you said, like, I don't know, I could attribute some things directly, but some I don't know the impact. I just know that it's going to work if I keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to get me to where I want to be, or it's going to help get me to where I'll be, and potentially get you places where you didn't even know you could get to, right, at chance. But if you're just in the game, tuned into the market, sharing relevant content daily, consistently in different mediums, right, you get invited to rooms that you couldn't pay to be in, as you said, and people are paying attention. Right? And people ask, like, how do I know how to monetize it? I think you even asked me, like, what are the results? I was like, I can't predict that for you, but if you post for 3 years straight to your ideal target market and it's relevant, like you're going to get feedback, whether they don't care about your content or the problem that you solve, or you're not articulating it in the right way, or they're going to be all in and it's just a matter of timing. Right. And that's why I just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's how you navigate the ups and downs, and you just get enough volume. So I love that you share that, because for all the listeners, it's like, keep going, right? Find the niche, find the vertical, find what they care about hearing and learning. Be the one that put it out there, and just keep going and keep going and keep going. And don't take it too personally, right? Just keep going. When they come back, be like, great, okay, sounds good. Verify, vet, but like, that's it. Like, that's all there is in a little bit, it kind of summed up. So
Right.
super cool.
Another
Super
thing
cool.
is, when you rely only on, there's not many go-to-market options for agencies. Like there is ads. It's very expensive, probably too expensive for most agencies. You can still do it, but expensive. There is cold calling, cold emailing. There is events. There is but a lot of this stuff, when you stop doing it, it's like the faucet stops immediately. You stop ads, you don't get any more leads. You stop cold calling people, you don't get more leads. So that kind of the hamster wheel. You need to keep going, because even more if you get placement fee or one-time fee, even on a retainer, never get a lot of visibility on like 12 months ahead. So you need to keep going, keep going, keep going. And sometimes you also get this where you do a lot of outbound, you get a lot of clients, so that's great, business going great, and then you close all those hires, and then suddenly no more clients, so you need to go back and go back to grinding again. Content is so much different, and I've been like, it's a grind as well, it's a lot of work. End of last year I was a bit burnt out. I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore, I can post 10 times a week anymore. And I decided to just lift the foot from the pedal a bit. And so I haven't been as active over the past 6 months. And still, I'm getting so many results from the work I've done in the past. I'm still getting invited to events. I'm still getting invited to podcasts. So my voice is out there, and yeah, people keep referring us, and I see my follower count growing naturally on LinkedIn without me even posting. Like I post once a week or something now. So it really compounds, and there is this real flywheel effect in a way that you rarely get it in go-to-market initiatives in business. Like most go-to-market, when you stop doing it, it just stops. Content just keeps going.
Yeah, it's evergreen, right? And you can repost it, you can repurpose once you kind of get some confirmation onto what is resonating. And I don't know about you, but that's not always what gets the most likes or comments, is what I've noticed.
Even the opposite.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, like I've seen, like you get the 10 likes to 20 likes get you the most leads, versus like the 1,000 likes, not that I've hit 1,000, but say even 300 don't get anything, right? And I think that's a kind of a fascinating. So you've seen that as well.
Oh yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. And even like if you're doing too many views, it's probably that your content is not built for your target audience, because your target audience is probably not millions of people, except if you
Yeah.
were selling like mass market stuff. So that's definitely something I've noticed. Sometimes like the least successful posts are just not successful because they just speak to a very niche, like maybe thousands of people. But like sometimes I would post posts that would bomb and get like
Yeah.
8 likes. And then everybody would mention them. And clients would say, "Oh, yeah, I saw your latest post. I saved it and send that to someone in the team." But they wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
I don't know, like maybe because it wasn't likable or there's something like this. But, and then maybe to some extent, some people would like, that happened once that a person printed the post and posted it on their in their actual office, and this post totally bombed, but it was so high value for the very few people that this was speaking to that they enjoyed it. So that's, I believe, another trap on LinkedIn. I mean, like my biggest post did maybe 200,000 views, and then the second biggest did 80,000, and then third biggest did 40,000, which is still big, but never hit millions. And yet it was highly effective for us in our go to market.
I, I'm right there with you. I think I've maybe hit 100,000 on one post, and that's it. Hasn't stopped me right from getting business, getting leads. Same
Mm-hmm.
thing with you. And I've had clients get 2 million, 5 million, 8 million impressions on posts, and nothing we do is about going viral. But if the quality of the content sometimes, and it's typically kind of more candidate driven posts
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that typically are the ones that
true.
blow up.
Yes.
But if you're focused on business development, they're typically going to get less views. But again, you could have a huge impact, right? Connecting with the right people. We talked about that Dripify flywheel, even manually connecting flywheel, right? It doesn't really matter as long as it's the right audience. I'm with you. I care more about not necessarily the views and likes. I care more about the audience, who's actually looking at it. And one of the things I know is about 70% of my viewers or post viewers are in recruiting somehow, if not more. And I was like, that's the number that I want to see,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if that's 2%, I'm talking to recruiters, like something's off. I don't care if I have a million followers, it wouldn't matter. And so like that's a huge, I think, missing piece of the equation that people kind of forget. It's like that's what actually matters. But I think we're trained for whatever reason to look at the number of likes and big
It's
and like think
addictive as
that's
well. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it gets addictive. So I think get yourself into that space where it's like, okay, is this creating revenue or is this just vanity metrics?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that's like so key to always keep in mind with this content.
Yeah, totally. And it's also better to expose the same 1,000 people 100 times, because that makes them
Yes.
very much more likely to buy your product or your service, just to have a good opinion on you, than like a million people just one time.
Yeah.
And then again, you don't need millions. Most companies don't need even thousands of clients. Like most companies get by with dozens of clients, maybe low hundreds of clients.
Yeah.
Specifically, agencies, like very few agencies are working with more than 100 clients at a time, because it's a very fragmented market and there's a lot of service component to it. So talk to you 100 clients and just make sure that these people are exposed, and then they have a good opinion on you, so that when you reach out to them, they're more likely to reply. And that's good enough already. Like you don't need to talk to millions of people.
Yeah, it's just getting focused,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like everything you weren't always focused on like new. It was just like diving deeper in the quality. It's like, hey, if I have 1,000 connections in my market, what do they need to hear? What do they want to hear from me day in and day out? That's going to make an impact and make yourself memorable. And you were. I mean, people talk about getting the 7 to 8 touch points to get a meeting or 12 touch points to close a deal. I mean, if you have content, I mean, there's people that will follow you, get notified when you post and all that. They could see 50 of your posts. I mean, I don't know if you could talk about, like, did you see an increase in the quality of your clients as you started posting more and getting clients more from LinkedIn and content, like
Well,
almost easier to work with?
I never had, I don't think we had any issues with like clients that were hard to work with. But then again, like the biggest client, where our biggest client ever, was kind of as a ripple effect from the LinkedIn content, and the LinkedIn content surely helped with this. So I would say yes, but that's a small yes.
Yeah, it sounds like you. I mean, from the kind of the get go, the way you attacked it wasn't as much of a problem. It's just something that we've seen is people, and maybe it's just kind of the confidence I get from getting clients from content. But when you have that out there and people understand that, like, you know what you're doing, you know that you know what you're doing, and you're approaching it the right way, right? And people see that in your content over and over, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. They're not going to be go
Right.
be an inbound lead and be like, "Hey, well, what's your rate?" Well,
Yes.
we have 8%. It's like, well, I don't care. Like, you reached out to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the like? What actual problem do you have? Like, what do you want to solve here? Before we talk about pricing, you can always kind of tell, like, I guess the type of buyers. So I guess the answer might even be you probably didn't bring on those types of people, which is again
Maybe
thing I
so
focus on as
let me
well.
change my
Yeah,
answer. Maybe it didn't bring different clients, but the relationship with the clients is easier because they would trust you more, and they're like, okay, this
yeah,
person knows his stuff. So if he tells me to do this, it's not simply because he wants me to buy his product and kind of use his product. And if he tells me to do this, it's because he knows his stuff. And that's kind of the thinking that people have is different.
yes,
It's not like he's doing content to promote his product, but the opposite. Like he's doing a lot of content. He knows his stuff. He knows the industry. He talks to a lot of people. He knows what's good for the industry, and then he built a product for what's good in the industry, which is true as well. And so, if I want what's good in the industry, I should buy a product from the guy that knows what's good in the industry. Basically, that's kind of a different thinking. And so, if I buy the product from this guy, then I'd better just take his learnings as well and listen to what he has to say, and so that he can tell me how to use it properly, rather than like. Yeah, what are your rates? And okay, I don't care. I want this. I don't care about your coaching. I just want this person fitting this exact profile. It's much easier when you're doing this. So probably the clients are the same, but the relationship is totally different. That's for sure.
absolutely. Yeah, it reduces the friction,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is just like less roadblocks, which is just makes fulfillment a lot smoother, which is I think definitely the key. I've definitely have found that people are just like, no, you tell me what to do, I'll do it. I'm like,
Right. Back to the
great,
doctor again. Like I
sweet,
come to you because I'm
yeah,
sick. I trust you to be a good doctor. So no, you tell me to take that pill. I'll take it, and I won't
yep,
doubt everything you say. And I was just okay. I want to get better, so I'll just trust you. But
absolutely.
if you just
No,
come up and
it's
say, "Hey, you should take that pill," and you're like, "Okay, what? It's
like,
expensive.
who
I
are
don't
you?
care. Who are
Yeah,
you? What are
it's
the
like
side
yeah,
effects?" So,
we're in the subway. Yeah, uh,
right.
no, that I love that. Uh, Talk to me about HireSweet. There's a lot of tools, a lot of ATS, CRMs out there, right?
Hmm.
Competition is not nearly as fierce maybe as agency recruiting, but a lot of software. Again, you're in the game as an agency owner, but also software HR tech owner. What's how has kind of HireSuite evolved, and like kind of where do you feel like you kind of solve some of the problems in the marketplace, and kind of like that kind of makes you guys stand out, right? And kind of do things a little bit differently.
Um, so our approach is actually very simple. So there is a lot of competition. There is a lot of very good tools. When we see a good feature from the competition that works from our clients, then we kind of steal it and you do the same thing and try to improve it. Um, and then we work a lot with our clients as well to build stuff that they need. And that doesn't feel like anything very different, but you do this over 8 years, and in the end, you have a very good product that does everything like in very fine-tuned details. So there's something, for instance, where you can use HireSuite to create anonymized resume for your candidates and share that with the clients. You get a Kanban view where you manage your candidates. So it's a lot of very small stuff, incremental stuff. But when you do a CRM, kind of CRM ATS, you need to figure out all these very small things. Um, and I think that what makes the product very good today, and once the product is good, it's easier to sell it. So it's kind of a bit feels a bit ridiculous to just say the product is really good. It's really good for some people. It's not good for everyone, and I'm sure some people will prefer alternatives. But if you're an agency, if you're doing a lot of outbound, if you're doing a lot of messaging, and then you need to manage your clients and your candidates, it's a very, very, very good product. We have AI to search people in the database. We have AI to generate messages, but it's not like there's one killer feature. It's just like you need to have it. You need to have a CRM. There's a lot of competition, but there's a lot of very bad products as well in the CRM space.
Yep.
Same as agencies, right? Like what makes a very good agency? Well, it's mostly because the person's good, they're responsive, they make placement, they really work, they've been at it for many years, they have a track record. That's kind of the same for us. So I'm not sure I have a mind blowing answer to this.
I think that honestly is a great answer.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I honestly, and I'll tell you why. I love the answer. Number one, you said it's not for everyone, which to me is always a sign of a product that knows what they are, who they serve, which is huge. I tell that to people. I am not a coach for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
and that is on purpose. And I'm totally okay with that. So I encourage people learn, find out, test. See if it's a fit, right? For at least on the tech side, same thing with a coach. Follow along and see if would you want to learn from me, right? The software, does it make sense with your screen and your monitor and the interface and the extensions and all that, like the workflow, as you said, the speed, the UI, like, is it like, are you okay with it, right? Can you adapt to it? Because that is, and give it a week or two, right? And sometimes immediately the change can be a little jarring, but if you're coming from something else, but like, that's what you're looking for. And that's how I tell people to identify an ATS system. I was like, what are the three things you need that you're not getting right now, or you have to make sure that you keep getting? And when you do your demos, ask the rep to cover those things with you, right? And then how they respond and all that, like, that recruiters kind of taking some ownership over this tool may or may not work, but like, what do you need? What do you need to do it? I mean, maybe there's a match there. I love that you guys are covering like the little things. It is all about the little things. Like
Right.
that's what differentiates the tools, the recruiter, like the everything is like the little big things. Really, what I call them, like that's all that matters, right? There are software ATS companies that are getting a ton of love that I have tried. I'm like, this is clunky. This doesn't have good filters. This have that and all that, but like they just have good marketing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I guess good marketing kind of get away with that product. But if you get good marketing and a great product, I mean that's the win. And it sounds
I
like
don't
just
think we have
yeah,
a good marketing. I think that's one thing. Like our competitors definitely have a better marketing. One thing that we do though is like we're very very involved in the space, and we really shifted from like we want to build a product so we get more money and we all shove it down the throat of our clients to kind of what does the industry need? Let's build the best experience possible. Let's be proud of what we build, and let's build the best product possible with our clients as well. And this will go naturally. We do a lot of kind of founder-led marketing, meaning me mostly talking to a lot of people, doing webinars and stuff like this. But we don't invest nearly like our marketing investments are probably in the low tens of thousands of dollars per year. Is really minimal. Like so, competitors are
power
like
LinkedIn
millions,
content. Yeah, power LinkedIn content.
right?
I mean, honestly, I mean, I think it's organic, and I think when anyone talks to you or listens to you, read your content, it's clear you know what you're talking about, that you're in the trenches. That's what people respect. That's what people want.
Mm-hmm.
Is and the 4 hour work week is long gone. People want people that work hard and work smart and that can articulate it. And that's who, we need leadership, honestly, in this country and in this society. And what does that look like? Leaders lead from the front, right? They don't sit on the sidelines. Like they're in it, they're in the game, they're trying to figure stuff out, iterate and make tweaks. And that's what you're doing. And if you just market the journey, that's all you need,
Exactly. Yeah.
right? So, and I think that's what you're doing a great job of, which I commend you for. I could tell from the LinkedIn Live. I think you had 330 people, and probably maxed out even more
Mm-hmm.
live at one time, which is insane. And it kind of goes to show the quality of like the value that you're giving out, and just also the thirst in the market for learning and how do I do things better and be more effective from recruiters, from companies, and all that stuff. Like it's out there if you give it to people, right? You don't have to have a bunch of hashtags or be phony
Mm-hmm.
or need chat GPT, copy and paste. Like just share what you're working on.
That
And you can surprise yourself.
that's
Yeah.
something I think we talked about before in another call. Is I feel like the market needs more training than software. You can
Yeah.
get the best. It's probably like two different legs. At some point, you'll get more software because everybody becomes very good, and then now you need a product, and then at some point the product becomes so good that people need to catch up with training. I feel like currently people need more training than software. Um, and we're kind of building software, and software needs to be hit. But the way that we think about it is more like we're not exactly doing the software, pushing the software itself. We're really building the content around it and the vision that we have for recruiting. Like, you need to be organized, you need to structure, you need to automate your follow-ups, you need to use AI to search in your existing databases and stuff like this. There's just a lot of concepts that we have, but we're like deeply, we want people to buy our product, obviously. But in a way, we don't really care if they do buy it, as long as they embrace those concepts, and that's really the concepts that we're pushing. So buy our product, but like deeply, the first step is already to improve the candidate experience, to monitor what you're doing, to track what you're doing, to follow up smartly, and to nurture the database, to go back to candidates that you already know before going back to a candidate that you never talked to. Like, do all this, and the world would be a slightly better place. And use HireSweet, it will be a vastly better place. But but it's kind of the way we're thinking around the content.
I mean, I love that. And someone that I try to take the same exact approach. It's refreshing to hear that on the software side. As you said, more training the software is needed. Every ATS that anyone signs up for, like, I wish I had more training, or do you know how to do this here? Yes. Or they didn't really have training for it and all that. And if you're just kind of giving that freely and giving people things to think about and how to adapt and how to be embedded in the tool, right? I mean, you have a customer for life. If you're the one teaching someone things, especially as a software company, it's super powerful. Why would they go anywhere else? Like, they're getting what they need from you. I think that's kind of how to think about content and marketing.
Totally.
Right. And kind of what's in it for them, but also how can you be indispensable to someone's day to day, right? How many of us have blogs and apps and sites we go to, we want to read the latest article in the blog and all that. Like, you can be that person. You don't have to be that person for millions of people, to your point, but what about 50 people? What about 100? 500? That's like a doable number. And people have built $1 million businesses out of that. So
yeah,
it's, I love the approach. Well, we can wind it down. I guess, what kind of the future hold, right, for you? Kind of, what are you working on now? What are you kind of seeing? I know some things you can share. I know some things you're still building behind the scenes. What you got going on?
Still doing a lot of content, pulling slowly away from LinkedIn, like kind of in the crazy days where I did 10 posts a day, 10 posts a week. But it's also more enjoyable to be kind of laid back and don't have that. So we'll see. I'll keep on doing the podcast as well, The Modern Recruiter, on which we did an episode together. It was really great. I encourage people to listen to it. Keep growing HireSweet. HireSweet, for now, one of the main goal is to really build the best kind of all-in-one tool for agencies. So we're not building out the client part much more. We already have a very strong candidate part. And yeah, we'll see. That's it for now, and we'll see what happens in the next few years.
I love that. Any piece of advice that you want to lead the listeners with, whether it's about LinkedIn, content, marketing, recruiting, what's a gem?
Listen to The Modern Recruiter, and listen to the Digital Recruiter. So you become more digital and more modern, and that's you'll be a better person for it.
Always be learning. That's the tip, right? Yes. Always be learning, and then always be applying what you're learning and testing it. Mm-hmm. I think it's best things can be simply said. So, Robin, absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on here, sharing just all your awesome experience and wins and success, and just kind of peeking behind the curtain. So it was awesome talking to you.
That was great. Thanks, Mark.
All right, download, subscribe to The Modern Recruiter, follow Robin on LinkedIn or connect with him. Check that out. We'll have all the links in the episode page. We'll see you next time. Happy hunting, guys.